Kia ora koutou. Can we have our singers, please? We're here to launch a book tonight. Actually, before we start, could you all stand up, please?
Oh, please.
Put your hands up. Forward, shake them. Do the hokey cokey and turn around. Turn around.
Don't jump though.
Yay. Okay. Thank you.
Oh, lovely. Bit of energy.
This is the book we're launching. And this is a song we're going to sing.
Oh, take that off. Take that off. Right, oh. Song that you'll know. Don't be too polite, girls, don't be too polite. Show a little fight, girls, show a little fight. Don't be fearful of offending in case you get the sack. Just recognise your value and you won't look back. I sew up shirts and trousers in the clothing trade. Since men don't do the job, I can't ask to be better paid. The people at the top rarely offer something more, unless the people underneath are walking out the door. Oh, don't be too polite, girls, don't be too polite. Show a little fight, girls, show a little fight. Don't be fearful of offending in case you get the sack. Just recognise your value and we won't look back. They say a man needs more to feed his children and his wife. Well, what are the needs of a woman who leads a double working life? When the whistle blows for knock-off, it's not her time for fun. She goes home to start the job that's not paid and never done. Don't be too afraid, girls, don't be too afraid. We're clearly underpaid, girls, clearly underpaid. No equal pay in principle is every woman's right. To turn that into practice, we must show a little fight. We can't afford to pay you, say the masters, and they're off. But woman says, just cut your coat according to the cloth. If the economy won't stand it, then here's the answer, boys. Cut out the wild extravagance on the new war toys. All among the bull, girls, all among the bull. Keep your hearts full, girls, keep your hearts full. What good is a man as a doormat or following at heel? It's not their balls we're after, it's a fair, square deal. Actually, it is their balls we're after, and a fair, square deal. There you go. That's
Thank you. This is the book we're launching tonight, and you may have seen it in the foyer. If you haven't, please go and look at it afterwards. So first and foremost, I want to acknowledge and honour my co-editor, Gay Simpkin. Some of you may have known Gay. She was a long-time feminist and union activist and interested in workers' history. In 2009, she was part of a seminar in Auckland about the Working Women's Charter. Hazel Armstrong had the idea for a similar seminar in Wellington, and I was involved with that in 2010. When Gay and I met up with the Labour History Project's Mark Darby around that time, we could see there was plenty of material for a book with chapters written by activists from the 1970s. So Gay worked on the book over several years, but she was beset by serious illnesses and she died in February 2016. For my part, I dedicate the book to her memory and to all of the other women who struggled and worked for the rights of working women. I think Gay's niece, Robin, might be here. Could you put your hand? Thank you, Robin. Thank you for coming and welcome. And thank you for your support and interest in this work. So just quickly, what is the Working Women's Charter? You don't have to read it there, it's in the book, but it's a set of demands and 16 clauses covering a huge range of issues that mattered and still matter to working women. As Sonia Davies was wont to say, all women are working women. After several years of activist struggle, planning, organising, lobbying and plotting, the New Zealand Federation of Labour adopted the Charter as policy in 1980. Now, the Federation of Labour, the umbrella trade union organisation at that time, was very much male-dominated. And so this was really quite an extraordinary achievement. Let me tell you a little bit about what's in the book. Some of our authors are here tonight, and I'll ask you to raise your hands, please. Grace Miller. Grace. Therese O'Connell, who led us in singing. Hazel Armstrong. I think Wendy's not here, but Linda Hill. Hi, Linda. And myself. Others were not able to come or live outside Wellington, but they've sent greetings. Martha Coleman, Sue Kedgley, Margaret Wilson and Helen Pierce, and also Wendy Davis couldn't be with us tonight. So my thanks to all of you for your patience and kindness during this long, long project, and for your interest and enthusiasm in getting the stories told. We made this book together, and I'm proud to have worked with you on it. We do not claim the book to be a definitive history of the Charter. There are gaps, and perhaps the most concerning is the absence of Māori authors. Māori women were active in the struggle for the Charter, and sadly many of those involved have died. I do say, though, that this book provides a very solid background on the Working Women's Charter, adding to the work of other scholars like our very own Linda Hill, and Sonia Davies' story in her autobiography, Bread and Roses. Our authors include, as I mentioned, Sue Kedgley and Margaret Wilson, as you heard earlier tonight. They have both recently published their autobiographies and mentioned the Working Women's Charter. So almost all of the authors were deeply involved at the time in the struggle for the Charter. They write with authority because they were there doing the work, but they've also carried out quite a lot of research, and I can promise you plenty of notes at the back of the book. The book has many illustrations, cartoons, graphs, and posters. We've included many of the fabulous photographs taken at the time by Trish Saar. Trish, are you here tonight? No, I'm sorry she couldn't attend, but Trish did make some fabulous photographs, and some of them are there on the cover. Warmest thanks to Trish for permission to use those. And now I have to say some other thank yous. Many people and organisations helped with the book in different ways. Gay and I received funding from the Society for Research on Women's Elsie Locke Award through the New Horizons for Women Trust. I personally had a great deal of help from libraries and librarians, including Sue Hurst. And the Labour History Project, as we mentioned earlier, kept the funds left over from seminars safe, and our thanks to Russell Campbell for that. And thank you to Sybil and the Labour History Project for hosting us tonight. Last and not least, my deep appreciation and personal thanks to our publishers, Roger Steele and Christine Roberts, Steele Roberts Aotearoa, who welcomed me in and made our book look fantastic, in my opinion. So thank you. I'm going to hand over to Hazel, who's going to talk a bit about something she knows quite a lot about. Do you want to? Or do you want me to do it?
Yeah, you do it. Yeah, thanks. Thanks very much. Well, Therese and I have got a similar view that the Charter didn't just materialise in the 1970s. And I spent many hours with Marie helping me going through archives in the National Library here, finding out the history of the Charter. And it was unknown to me. So I came into the kind of Charter movement as a feminist in the kind of 70s and 80s. But the early history is really interesting. So the strands of feminism under the banner of a Working Women's Charter occurred 3 times in the 20th century. The first time was in the 1930s, and it was pioneered by communist women, and it's actually Keith Locke's mum, whose name was Elsie Farrelly, later Elsie Locke. She was in the Communist Party, and along with Connie Birchfield, they aimed to link women with working class organisations, and obviously the Communist Party as well. I'll talk a little bit more about that initiative. Then in the 1940s, also backed by the Communist Party, they formed a women's committee, and this included Connie Birchfield and Rita Smith. I don't know anything about Rita Smith really, but people here might. And then in the 70s was the kind of the part that I was involved in Therese, which I suppose you could say was driven a lot by people like Sonia Davies through the Labour Party and the FOL. But I just want to sort of talk about the 1930s. We found this photograph, which I think is wonderful. And so the first evidence that I can find about charter activism was in the 30s, and Elsie Farrelly's in that photograph, and they held a 2-day conference. And this, and again, Therese and I love this. This conference was supported by women's committees in Auckland, Rātahi, Whanganui, Huntly, and Hamilton. So you know, where were the workers? They were in places like Huntly and Rātahi and so on. And I picture in my mind people like Elsie Farrelly going to those places in midwinter, being in Rātahi with the 12 women or whatever, to get them there to this conference. They created a guide to action, which is set out on page 35 of the book. And they ran a magazine. And their aims were, this was so sweet, peace, this is 1936, peace, freedom, progress, advancement of women's rights, friendship with women of all nations. So this is their, thank you, Marie, this is their guide to action. And I just think it's very moving, you know, against fascism and war. Equal pay for equal work, a women's delegation to the USSR. You know, I'd have gone on that. Free medical, dental, surgical and maternity attention. So very relevant to our previous speaker. And I just want to say one little bit that was missing about that history was the first time that we started talking about the Union Medical Centre was through Women Against the Cuts. That was the first time, and then, you know, John Ryle and those of us and the kind of the Catholic Action people started meeting together. But actually it was Women Against the Cuts that was the very first time that we started talking about it. But look at those words. And so on, going down. And I just think, gosh, we still need those things now. Social insurance for all workers at the expense of the state and employers. Right, so then the 1930s charter activism got interrupted by the war, and the second charter movement was rekindled in 1946, and then their aims are set out on page 40 of the book. So then my analysis, this is just me thinking this, is that there was a conservative post-war culture in the 1950s going into the mid-60s, and that meant that charter activism ran out of steam. I mean, I'd like to be contradicted, but that's my analysis of what happened, because it just sort of dwindled away. There were obviously individual campaigns around like setting up family planning, but there was no kind of broad-based charter activism in the 50s and 60s that I could find. But the 70s saw an upswing in feminism and the beginning of a new wave of charter activism. Well, that's certainly the theory that I'm running in the chapter. I would give credit to Sonia Davies, who was one of several women, Therese, influenced by the Australian Working Women's Charter. And there's another name that comes to mind, which is Jessie Street, who was involved in charter activism in Australia. This led to a women's convention in 1977, where Margaret Wilson presented a charter for debate. Then, this is where kind of Therese and I come into action. For the next few years, we were sort of actively campaigning in our unions. I was in the Cleaners Union, and there were people in other unions, obviously, taking the debate into the union movement, which eventually led to its adoption, as Marie said, in 1980 at the FOL conference. So 30 years after the 1980 adoption of the Charter by the FOL, a group of us in Auckland and Wellington, we organised the Working Women's Seminar in 2010. to report on the history of the Charter, to see what had been achieved and what was more to be done. And we held a series of workshops that was in the St John's Church. And really this book came out of that seminar. So thank you, because really the hard work landed with you, Marie.
Just in case. I have to hit someone.
Oh, it's a nice smacking movement. Oh, God. So much I have to learn. Hi, everybody. So I wrote the chapter taking the Charter to the FOL and the work of the women's subcommittees, much to my absolute surprise, because Marie talked to me about doing it, and I said, no, I'm a person who gets interviewed by other people and shows them all my papers. I don't write myself, you know. But what happened was that I was, at that time, living in New Plymouth, looking after my parents. My mother had died a few years. I was looking after my father for a number of years. And then he died, and I started to sort out my papers, their papers. And I realised I had all the material there, and I actually needed something to keep my mind off the death of my parents, which was great. So I sat down and wrote. And the wonderful thing, I have to thank, not only, of course, Marie for persisting and the publishers for keeping on, but the fact is that I thank my mother, because my mother kept, the darling mother who loved her children so much, she kept all our letters. Can you imagine? She wrote to us as well every fortnight, typed it when she had a typewriter, with carbon copies. I've got some of the carbon copies because they're quite faint, because there were 6 of us that she had to write to. But it's, her letters I love, and I just cannot throw them away, because to me they're absolutely delightful. You know, I can see my own style, talking about the weather, about what food, who's died, you know, good stuff. Anyway, so as Hazel said, Hazel and I discussed this a bit recently, because one of the things that happens when, I'm really pleased that the Working Women's Charter book was about the Charter and various voices there, because in fact, so often in this modern world we live in, says I, sounding like an old lady, we look always at the single people who have done the thing. So the people who have been great workers in the area, the Sonia Davies, Sue, you know, the various people, but the people who now have the ability to write their biographies, or somebody else their autobiographies. But to me, what was so important was to explain or to make clear the huge number of people who are involved in campaigns, that it's never one person. And I feel very strongly about that. I wanted to resurrect the work that has not been spoken of before, of the Working Women's Alliance, which was a group that I belonged to in Wellington, that coexisted around the same time as the Working Women's Council, and also to explain, to show, I think, the processes, you know, because you know, when I think about how we were disappointed at the beginning that the Working Women's Charter in Australia, they basically put it up in Australia. I mean, there had been a movement, yes, but it was passed without any real struggle. But I'm very grateful for those years of struggle, because those years that we took to everyone gave us a chance to develop the relationships, develop the organisations. In fact, Hazel and I and Dale Steele got together when we realised that actually to be able to do something like put the Charter forward, we had to actually develop the organisation. So not only were we doing that within our own unions, but we decided to develop the women's subcommittees within the trades councils. And that was a struggle, let us say. It was not an easy thing to do, because, of course, people were very suspicious, and they had a right to be, because we were plotting. There was no doubt about it. So in fact, you know, those years were really important. Those years were really important to develop our working together, our relationships with each other, and the development of, so that the policy actually, we're yet to know whether the passing of the policy did very much in effect, because I always wonder about that with policy, but it's always important, I have learnt over the years, that it's very important to have the policy. So it's how much comes from after that. So when I was thinking about what I was going to say, I just wanted basically to say that it's about, there's a huge group of people who were involved in doing the movement of the Working Women's Charter. And some of the things that I found in my writing, in my papers and so forth, to me, I look out now and think, my God, the lists of jobs that I was having to do, and it made me laugh. At the back of a diary, I discovered a long list of things like issues at stake, where forces lie. 1, get hold of Hazel Armstrong, because I didn't have Armstrong then, because there was only one Hazel in my life. Get hold of Hazel within the next 2 days. Get list of people at the seminar. Show her the report. 2, ring up people before the 13th and 14th of February. Chat them up. See if their union has done anything. See if they're interested in another meeting early March. 3, finish off report. That would have been hard for me. I'm not a writer. Send off to people who went to seminar, different unions, other trades councils before the 13th and 14th of February. 4, arrange meeting with Christine Gillespie for Wednesday, 14th of February, to have another look at report and formulate recommendations for Trades Council and Women's Subcommittee. 5, send report to Trades Council in time for March Management Committee. Talk up friendlies. George Goddard, Dave Morgan, John Slater, Sonia Davies, Ken Douglas, question mark, question mark. 6, photocopy Working Women's Charter. 4, for Dale Steele Little now. So, you know, it was wonderful to see that, because I know that, you know, you have to write those lists and get those things done. And I think that that whole process of change, how you do it, is something, you know, you just don't, as we all know, because we've lived long enough, a remit doesn't come up and a policy doesn't come up. I mean, there's so much work done. And I think the fact is, as Hazel's right, we weren't really aware of what had happened in the 1930s. I mean, we didn't come from Communist Party organisations in the sense of our families. I came from Taranaki. My parents were luckily union members, but, you know, we weren't aware that there was a movement in the 1930s. I mean, I only found out a couple of years ago that my great-grandmother signed the suffrage petition, and that was a bit of a shock. It hadn't even been in the family talk, you know. So, and of course, when you're young, you think everything starts with you. The older you get, you realise it didn't ever start with you. And hopefully it'll continue, though. So I just want to recommend that this book, I think that there's so much wonderful material here that is of interest still. And, you know, I think that basically when I sit down, I'll think, oh, shit, you meant to say so-and-so and so-and-so. But I think you've had a long evening, you haven't eaten. So we'd like to give a song to you so that you can keep on, and recommend that you buy the book. Make sure that you're a member of the Labour History Project. What else do you need to do? Say your prayers, done your morning wash, as my mother would say at the front of the thing every time. Have you said your morning prayers? Have you had a wash? Think of all those things. But this is a song that I think that, for me, I love this song. It does make me a little bit weepy at times because it's very simple, but it's also it's what we need to do. We're going to keep on walking forward. Join along. Keep on walking forward. Keep on walking forward. never turning back, never turning back. We're gonna keep on singing loudly, keep on singing loudly, keep on singing loudly, never turning back, never turning back. We're gonna keep on loving boldly, keep on loving boldly, keep on loving boldly, never turning back, never turning back. We're gonna reach across our borders, reach across our borders, reach across our borders, never turning back, never turning back. We're gonna work for change together, work for change together, work for change together, never turning back, never turning back. We're gonna keep on walking forward, keep on walking forward, keep on walking forward, never turning back, never turning back.
The book is launched.
Ooh.